This is Magic and Mortar. Welcome back, everyone. I am so excited to have you here with us today. I've got a wonderful video tutorial where I'm going to show you how to make these beautiful pine trees. And finally, we're doing another giveaway. I've been waiting for the giveaway, and it's finally here. The 7 trees that you see on screen and this painted mini, this filthy poison arm mud monster that you see. The 7 trees and the mini are in the giveaway. To enter, very simple. This mini needs a name. He doesn't have one. Drop a comment below, suggest a name, and you'll be entered. So if you're looking for a place that'll teach you how to make very strong pine trees that you can hit the table with, swing around in the air, accidentally drop, or even knock over in an effort to prove how strong they are, and you also want a shot at some free stuff, you are in the right spot. You guys, thank you so much for being here. Sit back, enjoy the video. Let's go ahead and get started. To begin, you'll want to grab some bamboo skewers and cocoa fiber. Alright, cocoa fiber is the key ingredient here, a very interesting product. You can find this in the lawn and garden section of a home improvement store. Typically they are circular in shape. They cost just a couple dollars, so you can find those pretty easily there. For the purpose of our project here, we want to start with a smaller square, so just cut that out of the cocoa fiber liner there. Just to give you an idea of what we're trying to accomplish here, we're going to be turning the cocoa fiber into the branches of the pine tree. All right, we'll be starting basically with the cocoa fiber. You're going to be cutting squares, maybe an inch and a half, and then gradually cutting smaller squares. You're going to take those squares, the larger ones first, impaling them onto that bamboo skewer, and then working to the smaller and smaller squares. Just to give you a visual, you can see here what we're trying to accomplish with the cocoa fiber. That way it'll make more sense when you're cutting the pieces out, what you're trying to do with them. Alright, so back to step 1 here. There's really no right or wrong way to do this, and trees being organic leaves room for error, so you don't have to get out a ruler and measure exactly. I usually just start with the cocoa fiber. I cut it into strips because it's easier to work with. Then I'll turn those strips into squares. I usually start about an inch and a half, and then I gradually just cut smaller and smaller squares. Take your cocoa fiber squares and split them down the middle. You might have to pull them apart a little bit, but this is okay. You can see how frayed the fibers are becoming, and this is what we want to achieve. When we start assembling the tree here, those fibers are going to act and look more natural like a real pine tree. So it's okay if you pull those fibers apart and they start acting a little bit crazy. Before you start impaling your fiber sheets onto the skewer, go ahead and just form a loose stack between your fingers here. This will give you an idea of the size of tree that you want to create, and it will give you a basic idea of the shape. Once you are satisfied with the size and shape, you can go ahead and move on to the next step. Using a pair of scissors, just begin trimming the corners off of those square sheets that you already have. We're starting to get ready to form the tree. We want to have circular discs moving forward. I would like to point out that when you are doing this step, do not stress over creating the absolute perfectly symmetrical pieces. In fact, the trees that we're trying to recreate in nature are not perfect themselves. So when you're doing this, it's actually going to be the imperfections, the irregularities, the differences, the variances in the shapes and sizes and lengths of the tree branches that's going to make the tree look more natural and real in the end. Take all of the circular cocoa fiber discs that you just cut and start impaling them onto your bamboo skewer. Going off what we just talked about with the imperfections in the pine trees, when you're doing this step, don't worry about having everything perfectly centered. Don't worry about having all of the discs going in the absolute largest to smallest order. You'll actually see right here when I impale this layer of tree branch, I actually put these discs out of order on accident, and then I just kept it because I looked at it, I spun it around, I said, hey, that actually looks pretty good. As long as moving forward, right, I'm going to try to get another disc that is pretty comparable in size. You just don't want to jump around too much, but as long as you're still moving gradually to a smaller disc, it's going to look fine in the end. Now that you have your discs in place here, what you want to do is start securing them, all right? So without pulling them off of the skewer, just nudge them to the top. Go ahead and grab your hot glue gun, run a bead of hot glue along the skewer, and then push the cocoa fiber up into and through the hot glue. This is going to help it grab on and adhere as best as it can, right? Go ahead and grab the hot glue again, and then run the next layer of cocoa fiber through that glue. You're going to do this with all of the layers until you get to the very top of the tree. Alright, so your tree is finished for now. We'll come back to it in just a moment, but we need to base the tree before we move on, alright? So if you are familiar with doing this, you can base your tree however you'd like. If you're unfamiliar, a little bit uncomfortable, I always just use styrofoam, right? So we're just going to breeze through this real quickly here, and I'll show you how I base my trees with the styrofoam. I will just be cutting a simple square shape out of the styrofoam for the base of my tree. I always like to add some weight to my tree so that it isn't top heavy, so I'm just going to leave a little bit of space to add a washer or two. After you've cut the styrofoam square out, we need to create a little bit of a recess that we can hide the washer in. So go ahead, I like to use the hot pen knife here. I'm going to go ahead and just cut around the washer so I have a nice guideline there, and then I'm going to go ahead and just melt away a little bit of that styrofoam so I can set the washer into that recess I create. Using a bit of hot glue, we're going to attach the washer to the styrofoam base. Go ahead and just add some hot glue into that recess there and push the washer into the glue to adhere it. Go ahead and hot glue the base of that bamboo skewer and then stick it into the styrofoam. You may need to hold it in place just for a minute or two until the hot glue dries. Add hot glue as necessary to make sure that the bamboo skewer gets a really good hold onto the base. Next, you're just going to go ahead and use your fingers and simply start pulling on the coco fibers. We want to make the tree look a little bit more full, kind of eliminate some of the very disc round shapes that we have going on. Very simple to do here, no right or wrong way. Just do your best to kind of fill the empty spaces between the discs by manipulating the coco fibers. Alright, now you can begin to make any desired changes to the base of your tree. Mine was just a simple block. Obviously, I didn't want to keep that shape. I'm just going to go ahead and round off the corners and get it ready for the painting phases, just making it look a little bit more natural here. This next step I do on all my projects. I'll be adding a layer of all-purpose joint compound to the base of my tree as well as to the bamboo skewer, the trunk of the tree. I do this for a couple reasons. It's going to add a little bit of texture to that plain wood skewer there, and it's also going to hide any imperfections, any of the metal of the washer that's showing through the base of the tree. I highly recommend this step. If you do decide to add a layer of this all-purpose joint compound, wait at least 8 hours before coming back to paint. I usually do this overnight so that I don't have to wait around. Begin the painting process by applying a layer of brown spray paint to the entire model. So we're going to be applying a dark brown, this is an espresso colored spray paint, to the tree branches, to the trunk, and to the base of the tree to give us a uniform base coat. And it's also going to help provide a little bit of strength when it dries. It will harden and strengthen the tree branches as well. We will be flocking the branches of the pine tree here using a Woodland Scenics Blended Turf Earth Blend, and we will be using a Gorilla Glue spray adhesive to adhere the flock to the tree. We're going to use a liberal amount of glue here to help with the adhesion, but also because the glue here is going to provide all of the much needed strength and durability in the tree branches themselves. Our first layer of flock here, again, we're using the Woodland Scenics Blended Turf Earth Blend. We want to use a heavy hand. We're trying to flock as much as possible here. If you don't get underneath all the branches, that's fine. That's why we have that dark brown base coat. But again, use a heavy hand. You can't use too much here. So try and use as much as you can to cover as much of that surface area as possible. I am spraying the tree with another layer of glue here, and we're going to flock it one more time with another layer of that same blended turf earth blend to get as much coverage as possible. Next, we're going to be applying a lighter shade of green. This is going to be a Woodland Scenics Blended Turf Green Blend. Now, for this is going to act as a highlight, okay? So we just want to apply the Gorilla Glue spray adhesive from the top down. So you can see I'm going to stand the tree up. I'm not concerned about spraying under the branches. I'm going to spray directly above the tree, and I'm going to spray down. Now this Woodland Scenics green blend here, this flock is serving as a highlight. So just the same way that we had applied the Gorilla Glue spray adhesive, we're going to be flocking from that same direction. Not concerned about adding as much as possible, but just hitting the tops of the branches like a natural highlight. Our painting process is a very simple one here. We're just going to be doing a very simple dry brush technique using lighter colors. So you can see I'm mixing a white with a brown, dabbing it on the washcloth there, and then I'm going to be doing just some dry brush, some horizontal strokes along the tree trunk here, just to pick up the highlights. For the base of the tree here, we'll be painting it green. Don't focus a whole lot on here. We will be flocking it later, and that'll take away some of the attention anyways. I use just a simple green color, and then when I'm hitting it with my dry brush highlights, I try to incorporate a little bit more yellow into the green, just pulling out some brighter colors there. And if you'd like, for one final dry brush, you can go ahead and pull some white into your yellow-green that you've created. Just get a very, very light white, yellow-green color there and hit that with a final dry brush just to pull out the finest detail in the ridges there. To apply flock to the base of the tree, go ahead and use a brush, apply some Mod Podge, and then simply sprinkle the flock over your Mod Podge. I do like this final step here because for the natural look that we're going for, it would make sense that some pine needles would fall to the ground, and so adding this flock gives that appearance. It's always a good idea when you're finishing a piece, especially when you're flocking it, to go ahead and seal the entire thing. I usually hit it with another layer of the spray adhesive, or if you have like a spray varnish, you can use that as well. And that concludes our pine tree tutorial. I hope that you guys could take this information to make trees for yourselves, for your own dungeon campaigns or war games. Thank you so much for being here, for watching. I love making these videos, and you guys being here and supporting me lets me do that. So thank you again so much. Do not forget about our giveaway for this painted mini right here. I've got the 7 different trees picked out for you. Just drop that comment down below with a name suggestion for the mini. And you don't need to come up with a fantastic name. I just want to know that you're interested. If you leave that comment below, I'll know you're interested. I'll know to enter you in the giveaway. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope to see you at the next video.